Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to wait about a minute to have people filter in. So just get comfortable. We'll get started in a minute. All right, everyone, good morning. My name is Laura Rice. I am the moderator for this session. This is session IC 99, using participatory action research to develop the ISWP wheelchair educators package. So just as a reminder, please keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat. And then at the end, I can either read off the questions or the presenters will look throughout the presentation. And I will provide the CEU code at the end. All right, so without further ado, I'll turn it over to our wonderful speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in our presentation on this last day of the conference. We're very happy to have this opportunity to share our experiences in the development of the Wheelchair Educators Package using a participatory action approach. Today, I'm going to be presenting with my colleagues, Teresa Plummer and Sarah Munera. Teresa is an associate professor in the School of Occupational Therapy at the University in Nashville, Tennessee. And Sarah Munera serves as a technical coordinator of the International Society of Wheelchair Professionals. Her background is in PT and assistive technology, and she is from Colombia. And I am Joali Burrola Mendez. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Montreal and the CHU San Justin Research Center. My background is also in PT, and I'm from Mexico. Unfortunately, Paula Rushton, who's the primary lead of this project and an associate professor at the University of Montreal, couldn't join us today. But we are here today representing a larger group of wheelchair service provision education experts that have been working in the project since 2020. So you will see only 3 of us, but we are a group of 32 professionals. Okay, so I know that these last 2 years have made us all familiar with the Zoom and other platforms, but I want to quickly remind everyone of some of the settings. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see from the left side your microphone, your camera. We would love to see you. So if it's possible, turn on your cameras, please. And you can also see the participants and the chat, and feel free to add your comments and questions in the chat. We will be interacting with you throughout the presentation. Next slide, please. We also have some reactions, so feel free to use them, and we will use some of the reactions to answer questions. Okay, so let's get started. Today we don't have any conflict of interest. And we have today 3 learning objectives. So by the end of this presentation, we hope that you can identify the PAR approach, the participatory action approach, and how we can use the PAR to gain stakeholders' input on their own setting, in your own settings. We also want you to describe the web, or the Wheelchair Educators Package, and I keep referring as the web. And we will also like you to at least have described one component of the web that may be useful for you in integrating or modifying wheelchair educators content in your own setting and context. So the next one, please. So today's presentation is structured in 3 main sections. First, we will review the PAR and the knowledge management for global health as part of the background. Then we will look at the Wheelchair Educators Package. I'm going to guide you through the 10 steps that we follow using a participatory action approach. And then Sarah is going to present the web. She will show it to you, and we will talk about some cases. And we will finish, our last section is related to the lessons learned. So now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Teresa.
Thank you, Yohala. It's great to see everybody. I appreciate your attendance on this last day. And let's first talk a minute about the background of this, as Yohala suggested. One thing we do know is that World Health Organization estimates that there are approximately 100 million people that are in need of wheelchairs, and only less than 20% have access to the appropriate wheelchair. We also know that there is a need to build competent practitioners and to provide a wheelchair service provision workforce. And that unfortunately, unfortunately, there just aren't enough people available to be providing wheelchair service provision worldwide. And so we understand that the wheelchair provision process is very complex. You know, it involves the service provision, the interaction between the person, their environment, activities. And so it becomes difficult to have a mass model of how this wheelchair service provision can be offered. And so, as I said, it is very complex. And we do understand that healthcare practitioners, primarily OTs, PTs, and P&O specialists, are the people that provide these wheelchair service provision services. And that there is a need for some competency built around this. And so that was kind of the background of the the background of the WEP. Next slide, please. So what we also understand is the information that was published by many sources between 2017 and 2020 really highlight the lack of insufficient entry-level practice training among wheelchair service providers and among graduates of OTPT programs. And that we realize that there is a need for these programs, professional programs, to add content to their curricula, and that there is a need for a resource to be able to do that. So we also recognize that the previous work identified the many barriers to the inclusion of this curricula, which includes time, funding, human resources, physical resources, teaching resources. As many of you know, there is not a single book out there that tells us how to provide wheelchair service provision across all complex situations. And there was also a need for us to understand and develop ways to teach this content both in person and in distance programs. And so that was the beginning phase of the background of why the WEP was being developed, or why we have moved to that. So there was a stakeholders meeting, as you may know, in 2018. And the goal that that group of people put together was that by the year 2023, 10 countries will have new or strengthened evidence-based, adequately resourced, integrated services supported by policies, highlighting here competent personnel and a range of appropriate wheelchairs. And so the priority action item that came out of this stakeholders meeting was that we need to support competency development for practitioners. Next slide. So the scope of the WEP is that is to guide the integration of wheelchair service provision education into professional rehab programs and regional training centers as a sustainable, appropriate wheelchair workforce development strategy. The audience is educators in academic and regional training centers from high, medium, and low income settings. Now, I will say that as we started in this process, we, and we'll explain what participatory action research is, but we narrowed down the focus of the WEP from the input of all the individuals that were part of the WEP development team. And so that is how we came up with the scope of this and the target audience. So the focus of the WEP is to provide the how to integrate wheelchair service provision and the content into different curricula. Next slide. Some of you may be familiar with this model. It is the knowledge model, and we know that knowledge translation is a complex, nonlinear process that relies on good processes, appropriate technology, and people that are both motivated and have the capacity to contribute to a project. So the logic model defines and describes the activities, the knowledge, and the importance of this for global health and development programs. So highlighted here in red, you can see that, well, first of all, let me point out the problem statement is that we know that there is a lack of knowledge, and that limits integration of wheelchair service provision into education into university rehab programs. And so if you see on the left, those are the inputs that are necessary for this knowledge translation, and we are highlighting educators. And then the process output is the wheelchair package itself. And the outcome of that is learning and goal attainment and the activities associated with it. And again, the long-term goal of this is to improve wheelchair service provision, education, and practice through effective knowledge management. And so this logic model kind of presents a roadmap of how we went about that. And I'm going to turn it back over to Yohali to talk about the PAR process itself.
Thank you, Teresa. So we know that participatory action research has three principal elements. We have the research, the action, and the participation. And the research involves everything related to the scientific process, where we establish some research questions, we identify where are the gaps, we collect data, and we analyze the data to present some results, propose changes. Excuse me. Action is the approach that we are going to follow to change the problematic situation, and that leads to social change. And the participation involves all the people who are interactive in this process. And we want to highlight here stakeholders' involvement as co-researchers. Next one, please. So we consider that participatory action research is a research approach. It's a process involving collaborative work. And here we have people with disabilities, their families, stakeholders, managers, educators, the industry, and many other professionals are people involved in rehabilitation and interested in addressing a problematic issue. And one of the key elements of PAR is that it's the interaction on an equal basis between researchers and stakeholders. And this research process is developed in such a way that it's helping us promote self-determination of all individuals. So it's very different from the previous, or let's say the typical approach of researchers leading the project. This is an involvement from all stakeholders, and the outcome that it's expected is to produce and apply knowledge that can change and address a problematic situation. And we would like to close the background by saying that participatory action research is above all a way of working, a way of approach an issue. And it's a way of working rather than just the application of any type of research methods or data collection to analyze a situation. So with this, we're going to finish the first part that it's related to the background, and we're going to start talking about the Wheelchair Educators Package. Thank you, Sarah, for reminding everyone that we will refer from now on to the Wheelchair Educators Package as the WEP. So I think that last definition that we share really kind of summarizes the key elements of the PAR approach, and it's going to help us review this next section. So in this next section, I'm going to share with you the process that we follow to develop an international project and what were the key components of each of the steps that we follow. So next one, please. Before I start, I would like to ask our attendees if you have been involved in a project using a PAR approach, and please feel free to use the reactions that are in the screen.
We see Emma and Laura with a yes. If Jessica, no. Perfect, thank you. Heather, yes as well. Maricia, no. And if you don't find the reactions, feel free to add your answer to the chat as well. We will be reading that.
Is someone unsure if? Great. So I think it's great to see there are some of you have used it. We will have the time at the end of the presentation for you to share your experiences. And for those who said no, well, hopefully this presentation will give you some insights into the benefits of using a PAR approach. So the slide that you are seeing right now are the 10 steps proposed a few years ago by a group of researchers, Camden and Ponset, that proposed 10 steps to follow a PAR approach. So the words that you see highlight kind of explain the definition that we shared before. It's this stakeholders engagement, problematic situation, and the collective work, and the need to address all that to change or to change a situation. The engagement is very important in the 10 steps. I want to mention that although the 10 steps are sequential, and for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to follow this order, it's important to mention that it's not completely linear. It's more like an iterative process that combines reflection and evaluation in all of the steps, okay? So here in this slide, you see the first 5, and then in the next slide, you can see the last 5 steps. So now we're going to review each step. So the first step is the stakeholders' request and interest to address a problematic situation. So in 2018 wheelchair stakeholders meeting that we mentioned earlier, the sector established the goal to obtain by 2023, and it's in the slide. And to achieve that goal, 10 priority actions were established. This project, it's related to one of the actions, that is a priority action number 9, that is support competency development. So stakeholders recognize that the lack of a competent personnel, it's affecting the provision of good practices in wheelchair service provision. So they were interested in address this issue. So in the spring of 2020, the International Society of Wheelchair Professionals received from USAID to develop the web. A steering committee was formed, and in May of 2020, there was request for expression of interest. And we were looking for technical experts and users, experts in assessing evidence, representative from groups that will be affected by the package, like healthcare professional, educators, wheelchair users, and so on, and a cross-section of professionals that may be using the package, such as occupational therapies, prosthetics and orthotics, and physical therapies. And we were very much interested in creating a group that from diverse settings, from low to high, medium income countries. So we received more than 80 applicants that were interested in joining the group. The next step, it's related to the agreement. So that call in May 2020 included the description of the project and the details of the commitment. So the time frame from this project was from 2020 to 2022, so 2 years, with a work effort distributed in year 1 from 12 to 16 hours monthly, and year 2 from 6 to 8 hours monthly. It's very important to mention that there was no financial compensation. So this is all volunteer work. And that the structure at that time was that the steering committee will provide support and guidance throughout the 2 years. And we will have some documents that can help us guide our members. The documents are the roles and responsibility policies and the publication and presentation policy, just to mention a few. So to give you an example of the level of engagement from stakeholders, from July 2020 to November 21, we have captured and reported more than 430 volunteer hours in this project. So pretty amazing. Okay, next slide, please. So remember that I mentioned that we had a total of 80 people, applicants. So from the 80, 32 individuals from 21 countries were selected. So on the top, we have the pictures of our steering committee group. So we have a total of 6. And then the other line, it's our 6 working group leads that are leading specific working groups. I'm going to talk about this later. And then in the last 2 two rows, we have our working group members. So I'm going to show you a chart of the organization, but I wanted to put first a face to all of the members who have been working and contributing to this amazing project. So we had a total of more than 16 languages. So our members speak more than 16 languages as a group. And we have the representation of 9 professions. Next one, please. So here is, you can see the 21 countries represented. And I want to pause for a moment and think about the challenges of having representatives from different countries, background, languages, and so on. So just to give you an example, one of our team members is located in New Zealand, which is 18 hours ahead of us. So considering Eastern Standard Time. So you can imagine how problematic it is to find a time to meet and a time that works for everyone. But there are definitely challenges, but more than thinking about the challenges, we need to think about the benefits and the advantages of having such a diverse group. So I want to stop for a moment and ask the audience, what do you think it prompts us to have a diverse group, and what are the benefits? So I would like you to type on the chat the first 1 or 2 words that come to your mind when I ask you about the benefits. Yeah.
And also feel free to unmute yourself if that works better for you.
I don't think I can see the chat, but do you
So
have
we have, yes, different
Yeah.
perspectives and experiences, contextual perspectives, different viewpoints on context, needs, and past experiences, stronger core objectives if everyone has a common theme. Thank you, Matt. Different points of view, cultural perspectives and priority, cultural perspectives. Thank you all.
Great, awesome. Thank you all.
Appreciate that.
We're going to touch base on this again in the lessons learned, empowerment. I think I can see now the chat.
Yes, empowerment of marginalized people. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a more organized chart organization. So we have the steering committee at the top, and then follow with working group leads, okay? So these working group leads organize and are leading 6 different working groups. So from left to right, we have the Participatory Action Research Group, the Scope and Review, the Advocacy, Planning and Teaching, Implementation and Improvement, and Pilot Sites. And each working group has at least 1 working lead and 1 steering committee member who's providing support. You can see that the size of the working groups varies, and this is because members self-select to participate in the working group that we're interested on participated in. So that's why it's different. For example, Planning and Teaching has 16 members and PAR has 6. Next one, please. Okay, so in July 2020, we had our first kickoff meeting. And in this kickoff meeting, the working groups were created and the members collaborate with the researchers to reach consensus on the scope, the target, and the focus. It was a very interesting meeting because it was the first time that we met. It was supposed to be in person, but due to COVID, we had to host it online. But it was the first time that we met, and the steering committee proposed the scope, the target, and the focus. And then it was very interesting to see how stakeholders start talking and working together to slightly modify it. So one of the main outcomes from that meeting is that we have an agreement between the stakeholders and research on the characteristics of the project. Other thing that members participated on was the selection of our logo, which we believe it promoted the development of this sense of belonging. Next one, please. Okay, so then data collection. So data collection is conducted in collaboration between the stakeholders and researchers. So working groups have been using different methods of collecting data. For example, the scoping review was a very active working group at the beginning of the project because we planned to do a scoping review to understand the state of wheelchair service provision education and to summarize the literature. And we want to do this because the results from the scoping review inform what needed to be developed in the wheelchair educators package. We have published the protocol, and this week we received the journal's acceptance of the manuscript. So it will be available soon, and it's going to be open access. ISWP will share it through their social media channels. Okay, so there are other working groups like the PAR and the pilot size that have developed data collection methods and have used tools to gather data. For example, the pilot sites selected validated tools to collect data about the usability of the web. And this working group proposed the tools, and those tools have been used for internal review, external review, and they are currently being used for the piloting of the package. The PAR working group, that actually Teresa is the working group lead, have developed internal surveys to collect feedback about the effectiveness of the processes that we are implementing. And the PAR has also conducted focus group to gather data. So there we have developed different methods of collecting data, analyze data, and we have selected different tools. Now, let's talk about the data analysis. So researchers and stakeholders, as part of a PAR approach, need to work together in analyzing the data. So in particular, the PAR working group has been carrying on the data analysis. What you're looking right now, it's an horizontal graph bar with the percentages that includes the results from one of our surveys. So in the first column, we have the questions, and then each column has ER or IR. It depends if it's external review or internal review. Then we have the percentages and their results. And then you can see in the last two columns some text. So the first one is related, the first column with text is related to a specific comments received from that section. And then the last column, it's a summary of the comments received in the focus group. So this is a way to see in one graph all the feedback received, both quantitative and qualitative. I want to show you another graph. This one is called a joint display. So we have used this bar. For example, in this case, we took some of the questions from the website usability questionnaire, the tool that was suggested by the pilot sites working group. And we see in the first column, in the first section, the questions, and then if it's ER or IR, so based on the sample size, we can determine that. And then we see the box plots, that it's a type of graph that can help us see the spread of the data. And similarly, with the previous graph, we combine the quantitative and the qualitative analysis. So it's a great way to see both types of data collected in this project and to share the results. So next one, let's talk a little bit more about sharing the results. So we have implemented different ways to share the results, and this is an ongoing process. For example, in terms of meetings, we have at least once a week a steering committee meeting. The working group leads meet once a month. And usually working groups meet monthly, but some working groups have been meeting more. For example, the scoping review at the beginning met more frequently, and the PAR working group, when we are analyzing data, we have at least 2 or 3 meetings per month. Then we have the web development team meeting. Recently, it was, I think, 2 weeks ago, but the whole team meets at least 2 or 3 times a year. We have created reports with the shared data. For instance, last November, we finalized the report from the internal and external review as another way to share the results and keep our group engaged and informed. And also have, for example, this presentation is another way for us to share the results of the project, and eventually launching the web will be a way to share this effort. So related to the plans and how we integrate changes. So we have received, we can say, both formal and informal feedback. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the formal process. So the first prototype of the website itself was finalized in, let's say, early summer, and then we conduct an internal review with a small group from the web in August, and then external review with potential users in August and September. Then we took some time, and the PAR worked very hard in reviewing the data, analyzing the data, and we made some refinements from the web prior to the piloting. So we are currently piloting the package. The pilot runs from January to April, and the pilot will help us to the final refinements before launching the web in September of this year. So the final version of the web, it's supposed to be ready in a couple of months, and we will disseminate it through different channels. For example, we will use ISWP channel to disseminate this website. And also we will prepare webinars in different language and social media content to spread the word. Next one, our last step is related to the consolidation of knowledge. And I have to say, it was a bit hard to summarize our lessons learned so far from this project because there are many. But we can say that the groups have been learning from the PAR process itself, from the state of wheelchair service provision, education, and delivery across professions. And there are different sections related to the knowledge gain that had been aligned with our publication strategy. The first paper published was the protocol of the scoping review. The next one is the results from the scoping review. And the PAR is leading an effort of publishing 2 papers. One that would talk about the PAR methods. So what we learned from using a PAR approach to develop an international project. And then the second one is related to the web's content itself. Our last publication will include the web's pilot results prior to the launch. Overall, this project, we hope it contributes to inform the wheelchair sector related to wheelchair service provision, education, and delivery. We hope also that supports the goal of the sector to be reviewed by 2023. And we hope that we are supporting the goal with 2 specific priority actions. The first one is related to support competency development, and the other one is related to support good practice. So the next slide, again, I think this was one of the slides that took us longer because we want to highlight the lessons learned. So what we can see right now is that the PAR approach, it's an amazing way to empower and engage stakeholders through all the steps of the development of a project and a research project. And it really promotes a collaborative work to address problematic situation. Having an international group of experts, it has allowed us to integrate different points of view, perspective, backgrounds, and many of the benefits that you have already shared with us in the chat. And we hope that having an international group can really broaden the likelihood of reaching a more diverse audience. I have to say, and we need to be completely honest, that it does take way more time to have a PAR approach. And there are some ethic requirements that are very particular of this approach. And one of the, I want to quickly share with you something that happened. So remember in step 5 and 6, the researchers and stakeholders work together in analyzing the data. So in order for members to analyze the data, they need to go through some training modules, ethic training modules. So something challenge that we had is one of the members, despite following up with this person, he or she couldn't complete all modules and couldn't participate in the analysis of the data. So this is one, it took us a little bit longer because we really were trying to include this person in the data analysis, but due to different situation, this person could not be part of the group. And I think it was a lag of a couple of weeks when we start analyzing the data. So it's important to have some ethic, there are some ethic changes that we need to consider in using a PAR approach. So it's time to see the web. So I'm going to pass it to Sarah.
Thank you, Yali. I'm wondering if we have any questions, comments, or I don't know, something you want to share so far?
I think I don't see any specific questions in the chat, but I think you guys have covered everything and it's more discussion points.
Super. Thank you, Lara. And if anyone has anything to comment or any question, please feel free to put that on the chat or let us know at any time. So let's look at the Wheelchair Educators package. We will look at the homepage, which has general information regarding the Wheelchair Educators package, as well as the dashboard. That is one of the main tools that we have developed in order to allow the users to personalize the experience they will have while using this website. So this is our homepage. We have different images regarding the work that has been done in wheelchair service delivery and training. We have a summary of what the web is and an orientation video. And as you will see, each of the main section will have an orientation video, super short. This one is, I think, 3 minutes, just so the user knows like what is expected and what they can do. Then we have this lovely graph with the 3 phases of implementation. So through the research and the background that Teresa shared with us, we have seen that there are 3 phases to implement, to integrate wheelchair content into universities or regional training centers curricula. And that is advocate for a change in the curricula, plan and teach, plan what you want to teach and then go ahead and teach it, and then evaluate. And we also know that there is an important, there are important contextual factors such as the local population needs, the wheelchair supply chain and service delivery, as well as governance. So this is the framework in which we are basing this Wheelchair Educators package. We also have some general information regarding wheelchair service provision and some highlights of the web. And here you can see I'm in Colombia. We can also select different languages and different regions of the world, and we will talk about that in a minute. And when I click on my name, I already logged in. I can find the dashboard and all the things that I can do here. We have a news feed in order to see like latest updates of what people have been doing on the web. We have the development of SMART goals, and again, we will talk about this in a second in more detail. We have information regarding program profiles, wheelchair statistics. We can request support and ask for questions. So this is in general how the web looks with this homepage and dashboard. Once again, to personalize how the user actually uses the web. And we are going to look at some case studies to review how this can be of support for different people. So here we have a professor at a physical therapy program. Turns out she has been teaching for 10 years at an undergraduate PT program, and she was recently told that she is going to give a new course next semester. And this new course has 90 minutes of wheelchair content to be covered. So I don't know if this resonates with any of you. New course, new content, what do I do? So specifically, this content is regarding physical assessment, which falls under the step 2 of the WHO 8 steps. and it will be taught by an in-person lecture. So this person doesn't have any experience on the wheelchair sector, but she has a friend that is an OT and works in the wheelchair sector, and she told her about the wheelchair educators package. So she went to explore and see what is in there. So based on these specific needs, where do you think she should click if we look at our integration process? So let us know in the chat or turn on your microphone. Do you think she should go to advocating, planning and teaching, or evaluating? Planning and teaching, says Jessica. Do we have any other comments? Jessica, here we go. So we click on planning and teaching, then learn more. And we have a video explaining particularly how this part of the wheelchair educators package works. And this video will prompt the user to create a SMART goal. And you can create a SMART goal either going to your dashboard, as I showed, or you just click here, and then you're back to my SMART goals. So when she opens the SMART goals, there is another video there explaining her how to do so if she has never done it. And we have this approach that is pretty simple, just filling in the blanks. So by some specific date, I will, the action that she needs, to the goal that she has. So she starts thinking on what she needs and says, by June 30 of 2022, I will have my lectures and class activities to teach physical assessment. So now she knows what she needs. After that, she clicks next, and the web prompts her to rank her SMART goal using the goal attainment scale. And once again, we have a video explaining how to do so if the person has never done it before. So here we have the expected outcome that I just mentioned. By June 30 of 2022, I will have my lectures and class activities to teach physical assessment. And to start the rating process, we come to the current state of things. So currently, she doesn't know how to teach physical assessment for her course next semester. And then we see if this is our expected outcome, then what is a little bit more than expected. So by the same date, she will have support from a wheelchair expert to deliver the physical assessment portion of her course. That will be even better to doing it by herself. And then much more than expected will be that by the same date, her students will go to a wheelchair clinic to learn about physical assessment with an expert and a wheelchair user. So that will be amazing for her students, right? And then we only need to fill in a little bit less than expected. So she will have an idea of what to deliver in the physical assessment. So now she truly understands what she needs to do or what she wants to accomplish better. And then when she goes back to the portion of planning and teaching, we can see that this portion is based on WHO 8 steps. We have examples on how this particular portion can be used for OT, for PT, and for PNO. Then she clicks learn more to keep learning, and she finds the different 8 steps. So if she wants to teach her students next semester about physical assessment, where do you think she can click next? So we have the different 8-step options. Becky, assessment, perfect. So when we click there, we see some background information regarding what is the content on that particular step. And of course, it is sitting assessment. Thank you, Jonathan. Number 2, some planning considerations, what to think of in terms of location and facilities and human resources to teach this specific content, some tools and equipment that may be required. And then we have specific learning objectives. So let's say she wants to teach her students how to examine environmental factors. So she can click on that objective and she will have the particular learning objective for her students. So to examine the environmental factors to be considered when assessing a user. She has examples of how to teach this, for example, with case studies on mobility impairments and climate environmental factors, and with a small group practicals. And she even has examples on how to evaluate her students' knowledge. And we also have links to different resources that the professor or teaching assistant can use. And based on our external review, we received feedback from participants. Participant number 10 said, I really see this very useful for people who have to teach, but don't really have too much sitting experience in putting a curriculum together, and especially helpful for clinicians who are pulled into teaching. So that's one of the main sections of the web. Now let's look at other person using this wheelchair educators package. So she is a newly hired teaching assistant at a prosthetics and orthotics university. And she went to a wheelchair training course and feels like her country needs a lot of important, in her country, it is important to have more information regarding wheelchairs, particularly for prosthetics and orthotics professionals. But in this university, there is absolutely nothing regarding wheelchair service provision in the curriculum. She went to a symposium like this and learned about the wheelchair educators package and wants to explore more. So once again, where do you think she can go based on her needs? So there is no information regarding wheelchair service provision where she works, and she would like to see a change in that. Becky is evaluating. Does anyone has another comment? Jessica, I can see you thinking. Okay, so let's go to evaluating and see what we find there. So it is important to support and improve your course now and into the future. And if this university doesn't have a course, do you think that we are in the correct place? Probably not, right? Because we don't have a course to evaluate yet. So in this case, she wants to make a change and she wants to find resources in order to advocate for a change in her university. So she will go to the advocating section. Once again, the orientation video, and then it will explain if advocacy is for me or not. So it's interesting that we prompt the user with a paragraph explaining if they are in the correct place or not. Like, are you in evaluating? So do you have a course to evaluate? If not, then you should go to a different place of the web. So to get started using the advocacy tool or portion of the web, we need to tell the web, where do we want to advocate? Is it inside an institution, outside an institution, or both? So where do you think she should click once again, based on her needs? So if you want to advocate outside an institution, it's probably to a governing body, to a legislation maker, and so on. In her case, and I will wait a sec to see. Thank you, Judy Marie. Inside an institution, because it's her institution, and she needs to advocate for a change there. So we go to inside an institution, and we have different resources that she can use. She has testimonial videos on educators regarding why it is important to have this content. She has even do-it-yourself presentations. So if you click there, it will download a PowerPoint presentation that you can modify by yourself in order to present and to advocate for this change. We also have experiential activities that that advocates can do in order to create a change or a reflection around why it is important to have more wheelchair education in curricula. So another participant from our external review said, I thought this was an incredibly useful website with the content that was there. This is what it looks like when it's finished, and here is the do-it-yourself. Instead of everybody in the world trying to figure out how to make exactly the same pamphlet, they could just go ahead and download it. And then we have another example of a therapist that works in Laos. And this person teaches in an OT university program that is new. They have been teaching regarding wheelchair service provision for 5 years, but despite this fact, this person realized that wheelchairs are not appropriate for the users, and users often get inappropriate wheelchairs. So he goes and talks to everyone in the program and says, okay, we need to evaluate our program and to see what is happening and why are we not making a difference. So where should he go? Thank you, Becky. Evaluation, exactly. So he goes to evaluating, he has a description, and then the web asks, where in the process are you? So before you are starting a course, during your course, or after your course. So in this case, they already finished the semester, so we're going to evaluate post-course. And we can evaluate the whole process or program. We can evaluate the clinical impact of the program or the sustainability to see the program particularly. So in this case, we want to see the relationship between what we are teaching and what is being done locally. So that will be the clinical impact that our program has. And once again, here you have the resources you need. So the things you will need to think about, the ways to measure your goals, and the resources and strategies with some links. So I received a chat from Laura a couple of minutes ago saying that we are running out of time. So this is another comment from one participant of the external review. I like it, clean and simple. You have simple menus and sub-menus. It's very easy to explore. So maybe in this next 2 minutes, you can let me know if you want to see any other cool features on the web, if you want me to click on any other place and see what happens.
Sarah, we would also like to invite the members of the participants of this group to provide us with any comments about the web, where it is at this point, any suggestions they have, or any questions that we haven't been able to address.
Definitely, thank you, Teresa.
If you just want to unmute your mic and speak, that would be great. I saw that Jessica put something in the chat about all we did as volunteers. That's yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, Jessica. What do you think about the, Laura says it's a great resource. Others, you think this would be useful, and in what context do you think it might be helpful?
I just wanted to share this other cool feature, what you think about if it will be useful in your context or not. And it's that, as you could see here at the beginning, I had Colombia initially. Now I changed to Albania. And then it says, based on WHO estimations, what is the number of estimated wheelchair users and the number of estimated wheelchair professionals needed. So that's another important tool in order to advocate. So I don't know, let's say Argentina. Some quick stats, exactly, Yali, thank you. Canada.
I just have a question. If do you guys plan to connect this to like the World Federation of Occupational Therapy pages or anything like that once it's finalized?
I'm sorry, Jessica, could you repeat that? You cut out on me.
Oh, sorry. I was just wondering about do you think this will be something that's connected or maybe already is to like the World Federation of Occupational Therapy or any of those international organizations for rehab professionals?
It will be a standalone for sure, but I think as people learn about it, they will be drawn into the ISWP work and have access to all of the materials that are in here. It's just a tremendous resource. Like there's so much detail. And Yohali, can you further?
Thank you, Teresa. Thanks, Jessica. Yes, definitely. It's going to stand by itself, but we want to disseminate it as much as possible. And I just want to mention that this first prototype, this first version is in English, but we're planning to translate it in different languages.
How are you getting the word out to all the different countries about the resource?
Good question, Becky. Yohali, do you want to answer that? Or shall I?
The question? I think it's my internet, but
I just asked, how are you getting the word out about this resource in all the different countries to make sure people know it's available?
yeah, that's a great question. I think a good start by having people from 21 different countries joining this effort. And as soon as it's ready, I think we're going to work. We will have a bit more details about the dissemination strategy. But something that I can think of is just by having leaders from other countries that is going to help us disseminate. But we're planning webinars and we're planning to have presentations and papers published and to spread the word as much as possible.
Yes, as we said, at this point, we're still doing pilot testing of it. So we will release it on a more formal level after that is finished. So if anybody would like to get in touch with any of us, Sarah has just pulled up, or Yohali has just pulled up our contact information if you'd like to be in touch with any of us. And it looks like the code was also posted in the chat.
Yes, it is. And I can also read it off. It is LMMVYY. All right, we have about 3 more minutes. Any parting comments or questions? This is super helpful. I know I already have a list of people I want to send it out to who I think will really benefit from it.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks, Becky, Matt, Jonathan.
All right. Wonderful. All right, everyone. Well, have a great day. Thank you so much for participating. There was a lot of great comments and so on. It's nice to have some nice interactive sessions on these Zoom platforms. So thank you so much. And we'll see you at the final session then. All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you.